People, today is Saturday, April 2nd, 2026. This ruling affects progressive whites, and yes, women also.
Now she's a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter with the New York Times Magazine. She's the creator of the 1619 Project, and she is the founder of the Center for Journalism and Democracy at Howard University in D.C. Nicole, thank you for being with us this morning. Not many people realize that Chief Justice Roberts has actually spent his entire career, from his days as a young lawyer in the Reagan White House, working to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. And your words are that this week, this project seems almost entirely complete.
Yeah, Ali, thanks as always for spending so much time educating your viewers on the perilous moment that we're in. It is complete, essentially, unless Congress acts. I think something is really important here. The hallmark of a liberal democracy is protection of minority rights, and that people have a right and ability to choose their own representation. And I think that we've done a grave disservice to both the truth and the enduring fight for equality when we frame the civil rights movement and the fight for voting rights as merely a Black rights movement. It's true. Black people were the ones who were willing to sacrifice their lives, their homes, their bodies in order to democratize America. But this really was about ensuring democracy for everyone. And if you give me a moment, I'd just like to explain how.
Yeah.
It is true. You know, the Supreme Court is basically arguing that racial gerrymandering is unconstitutional, but partisan gerrymandering is legitimate, while pretending not to understand that in the South, where half of all Black Americans live, the partisan divide is a racial divide. Nearly all white Southerners vote for Republicans, and nearly all Black people in the South vote Democrat. And it's not incidental that we have this racial and partisan divide in the former Confederate states, in the states that uniformly, by the way, oppose the Voting Rights Act. But what's also true is that what the Voting Rights Act overturned were race-neutral policies. So when you were telling your viewers about the grandfather clauses, the literacy test, the poll taxes, these were race-neutral because the 15th Amendment said you can't bar someone from voting based on their race. And so what white conservatives did was they figured out, how can we pass laws that don't mention race, but that will have the same impact? Well, that's what this gerrymandering is doing. It is race-neutral, but the Voting Rights Act recognized that race-neutral policies can have a racist impact and a racial impact. So one other thing I think that's important, though, about why this isn't just for Black people, the grandfather clauses, poll taxes, and literacy tests disenfranchised nearly all Black people, but also significant numbers of white people who also could not come up with a poll tax or pass a literacy exam. And they were willing, right? White elites were willing to sacrifice a number of white voters in order to punish most Black voters. Well, we're going to see that same thing with the fall of the Voting Rights Act. There are actually millions of white people in the South who do vote Democrat. You look at a state like Tennessee, 1/3 of voters voted for Kamala Harris, including many, many college-educated white women. You look at a state like North Carolina. Actually, there are more Democrats in North Carolina than Republicans. Yet because of hyper-gerrymandering, Republicans actually hold a supermajority, or until very recently, a supermajority in Congress. So what that means, or excuse me, in the General Assembly there, what that means is there's also many, many, many white Americans who also will have no political representation when they eliminate these Democratic seats. And so I think what I'm trying to help people understand is we tend to think this is just about Black folks. And that's sad, but that doesn't really impact me. But this is also going to lead to the end of Democratic representation, and I mean small d Democratic representation, for lots of Black folks, for lots of Latinos, for lots of Asians. So we need to realize the Black rights struggle has been a struggle to democratize America for everyone, not just for Black people. And so the loss of this impacts democracy for everyone. And
this is a deep part of your thesis, including in the 1619 Project. Sort of folks have to get their head around this, that if one of us is in chains, all of us are in chains, right? Democracy actually means the fair application of democracy across the board. You can't claim that it's democratic because you can vote if someone else can't vote easily. I would have thought in the last 10 years we'd have gotten closer to understanding that as a nation because of all the direct threats to democracy. But as of this week, we are much farther than we were 10 years ago from being a fully democratic country.
Absolutely. And if you actually look at think tanks and other organizations that study democracy, the United States is a democracy in decline. And one of the kind of last things that was holding back the elimination of democracy in America was the Voting Rights Act. Because again, it protects all Americans and our right to choose our representation. Millions of Americans are going to lose that right. And what happens is, as happened in a state like North Carolina, once you change the maps, simply telling people to vote cannot overcome that. There aren't enough people who can organize to overcome this type of hyper gerrymandering. So we, again, have to decide as Americans, are we going to have democracy or not? We've had a Congress that has refused to act. Well, under this this elimination really of the protections of the Voting Rights Act, even if majorities of Americans decide that they want to elect a Congress that will reinstate the Voting Rights Act or change the Voting Rights Act, their votes are not going to count enough to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, even in these southern states that we talk about, there's a reason why we have runoff elections there, because a black person running after the end of slavery could not generally muster 50% of the vote, but they could muster more than other candidates. So they set up a system where if you don't get 50% of the vote, you have to do a runoff, and then the white voters will all coalesce around a white candidate, and a black person couldn't win.
That's right. Yes, I mean, we can just look at how many black senators there are versus how many black people in the House of Representatives.
Right.
It is often possible for black Americans to win statewide or even county-wide office. Again, that's part of why we have representation that allows people of different groups, Democrats, Republicans, black people, because black people are disenfranchised, to be able to elect not statewide, but local representatives who reflect their desires. And let me again just put a pin in this. White Americans across the South who vote Democrat, who have want a Democratic platform, who like that platform and the different policies the Democrats pass, are also going to lose representation and not be able to elect people who reflect their values. The race is easy to see, right? Knowing that black people are going to disappear from Congress, particularly from the South, that you can see. But I need us to understand it is a lot of people who are going to lose representation, not just black people. And black people should be enough, by the way. But we know
correct. It should be enough. Hey, anybody disenfranchised should be enough. But I get the point that you're making, that it's all of us are affected in this. I appreciate your analysis on this. It's important.
After Reconstruction, black men and white men voted together in fusion coalitions. When you get a chance, please watch Reverend Dr. Martin King Jr.'s speech from March 25th, 1965. March 25th, 1965. March 25th, 1965. And where he says, in a nutshell, that after slavery, after free labor, black men and white men voted together in fusion coalitions. They voted economics. They were not concerned about the color of the skin. Can you believe that? It's true. It happened, right? And then they brought in segregation to stop black men and white men from voting together. Isn't that something? Yeah. So, we live in a multiracial, multicultural society. And you know what's going to happen if the Democrats respond to the Southern strategy on a higher level? You're going to have greater coalitions working together and electing members to Congress and the presidency. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of agape love and explaining to people that there's one race, the human race, we're all human, and everyone has a right to life, liberty, sweet happiness. Everyone, everywhere, every place on this planet known as Earth. And the two greatest commandments of Christ: love God and love your neighbor yourself. Who's your neighbor? Remember what happened to that man on the Jericho Road? The pastor walked on the other side of the road, didn't help him. The deacon looked down, walked on the other side. Samaritan, despised that day, had agape love, compassion, concern, took care of that person, right? Gave them free medical care, made sure they had housing, and put their Apple Card aside to make sure that if they need any other help, they had the money to do it. That's what it means to be a neighbor. Look at Luke chapter 10 in the Holy Bible, Christ's parable. We were all neighbors. God bless you, and God keep you.